Well, joining me live now is the Liberal Senator Andrew Bragg. Andrew Bragg, thanks for your time this afternoon. First of all, can I get your reaction to the Robodebt Royal Commission findings?
Well, I think this was a hugely regrettable affair. And as Senator Patterson said earlier today, people expect better from their government, and I think people expect better from the Liberal Party. And I hope that all those who have been involved with this undertaking will reflect very carefully.
Do you think it's time for Scott Morrison to leave the Parliament?
Well, I think if people have no further contribution to make, then I think they should move on. But ultimately, what Mr. Morrison does doesn't matter for him.
And the sealed section of the report, do you think that should be released?
Well, I don't want to undermine or damage any possible criminal prosecution. And I think the relevant agencies need to consider what's in that report and the DPP in the initial phase. But I don't think it's sustainable for the government to keep that secret. I think it needs to be released.
And the report also recommended less cabinet documents should be confidential. Would you like to see that?
Well, I think the principle of cabinet confidentiality is an important one. In this case, there have been some very serious allegations made about a government program which was conducted illegally. So it does, I think we have to look very carefully about we don't want to create precedent that damages the operation of government, but we also don't want to be overly secretive because I don't think many of us can consider many other precedents here where a government has run an illegal scheme.
Now, I want to ask you about the Voice referendum, which is obviously in a bit of trouble. Are you getting any blowback from party members about your stance on this? Because you're in minority in terms of the lay Liberal Party membership on this.
I think most Liberal Party members believe in the broad church and they understand that people have different positions and different perspectives. I've had a lot of correspondence over the years about my views on these sort of issues and on this issue specifically. And sure, I'm in a minority, but I've always thought the principle that people should be consulted and community should be engaged on the usage of special laws and special policies to be very sound. However, I regret, as many others do, the way that this whole process has been run over the past 12 months.
Do you think this referendum might fail then?
I think it's in a lot of trouble. My sense is that across New South Wales even, that it's not going to be easy to get a majority, even in New South Wales. And I think the lack of bipartisanship here was avoidable. I think it's been made much more political than it needed to be. And I don't think it's been treated as a referendum. I think this has been treated like a routine political issue where everyone's trying to wedge everyone else all the time. And I think that has meant that the whole agenda is really at risk. I think that New South Wales itself is very much in the balance. And if New South Wales is in the balance, then I'd say the referendum could easily be lost.
Indeed. Well, we have Ken White, should I say, about to speak at a rally in Perth on The Voice. It's a bit of a sad state of affairs, isn't it, when he's campaigning against the Liberal Party, when he's left the Liberal Party over this?
Look, I think it's been handled poorly by many. And the reality is that if there had been a process during 2022, the back end of 2022, to engage all the stakeholders, then there could have been some confidence that the model was going to deliver for Indigenous people, and there could have been some co-ownership. I mean, unfortunately, the government have tried to run it their way or the highway, and that's meant that there's a lack of support in the centre ground. I think the central problem here is that there is a very low level of support in the middle ground, and the middle ground is going to be essential for the referendum to be successful. I mean, I don't think it's in anyone's interests to see a referendum like this defeated, but I fear that's where we're headed.
Now, you've been a big booster for using superannuation for first home ownership and more ways to get young Australians to own their own homes. Are you pleased to hear Peter Dutton and Angus Taylor talk up home ownership policies for the next election?
I think we understand the major issue facing the Australian community at the moment is the increasing costs of mortgages and the increasing cost of paying rent. And the main reason that mortgages are so much more expensive than they need to be is because the government keeps on fueling inflation with higher spending. Now, the Reserve Bank is doing its job. The government want to try and get rid of Philip Lowe, but I mean that's just going to paper over the cracks. Ultimately, home ownership policy, renting policy, these are the major issues, and I think they're contestable ground for the next election. And it's really important that the Liberal Party develop a lot of ideas on the demand side and on the supply side of this debate. And I'm very pleased to see Super as part of the demand side.
How important is it for morale in your party that Peter Dutton gets a swing in the Fadden by-election on the weekend?
Well, I think Peter Dutton has led a very united team over the past 12 months. There's been a lot of difficult issues, and I think everyone is behind Peter because he's shown a consistency and an honesty about him that people want to see in a Liberal Party leader. And he's a genuine person. So I think there's a lot of goodwill for Peter inside the Liberal Party. And I think people are hoping for the best result on Saturday. I mean, by-elections are always hard. We've seen some pretty long-standing rules broken in the last couple of months. So I think a win is a win. A win would be a win.
Andrew Bragg, thanks for your time this afternoon.
Thanks. See you.